Hi, everyone. Hey, welcome. Welcome back to our book study, The Gospel of Thomas, or The Gospel According to Thomas. Interpretation by Cameron McColl. Let's see, I need to get the YouTube going. Just a second. There we go. Got that. Okay. Hi, everyone. I don't have my assistant today, so I'm uh, running the dashboard. It's good to see everyone. I think she'll be here in a few minutes, but I'll go ahead and get it started. And it's good to see everybody. And I'm just for you all that are in Susan's book study. I'm watching the replays over there. I love the conversation that's happening and what the dynamics of Angelo DeLullo's book. Awesome conversation last week. I loved it. And we have some zinger statements by Jesus in today's book study. I look forward to hearing your comments about it. And something really dropped in when I was reading one of them today. It was kind of like, because if you're alive, if you have skin on your bones, you're aware of the politics that are out there, right? It's it's like, what? What did they do? Oh my God. It's enough to make you fearful. And then also reading the having a spiritual practice in my mind, that's the if you don't have that, Lord help you, because if I didn't have it, I'd stay focused on the thing that doesn't really support me. I'd be making it, and actually, it's weird because it is kind of real in a relative sense. It does affect each one of us, and because we are into this kind of content. And also, I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita. That's awesome, and it keeps you centered when it looks like the world is like going crazy. But anyway, thank you for being here. We'll go ahead and get started with the gospel according to Thomas. And please raise your hand if you'd like to read the saying. We're going to start with 65, where we left off. We're going to pick up 65, 66, 67, and 68. I think we left off there, and then we'll move on to 70, because we did 69. My fault. I sort of took us out of order, added, went backwards. Anyway, it's good, and I can use your help if you want to help me keep track of things. Just let me know, and I'll just pivot and we'll go. If you have better records than I do, then I'll just go that way. But Rick, it's good to see you, brother, and please unmute your mic.
There. Can you hear me, Bill?
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
good to see you.
Uh, yeah, I think you're doing a great job, which I'll into that. We're on 65, right?
Yep.
Yeah. 65. He said there was a good man who owned a vineyard. He leased it to tenant farmers so that they might work it and he might collect the produce from them. He sent his servant to that the tenant farmers might give him the produce of the vineyard. They seized his servant and beat him, almost killing him. The servant went back and told his master. The master said, well, perhaps they did not recognize them. So he sent another servant, and the tenants beat this one as well. Then the owner sent his son and said, well, perhaps they will show some respect to my son. But because the tenants knew that it was he, the son, who was the heir to the vineyard, they seized and killed him. Let him who has ears hear. This is a very interesting parable, I think, Bill. And I think also the nature of parables, they're not factual based. They're almost like koans. If you look at the different translations of the God of Thomas, uh, there's many different layers to them and many different ways they could be interpreted. And they're designed that way. That's a good thing. If they were factual, it would take the contemplation out of it. It's like the sky isn't blue. Well, it's blue and gray, and sometimes it's not fact based. You know, so it can mean different interpretations. Um, uh, and I thought this series of parables to me was really somewhat repetitive in my interpretation. Um, a lot to do with um, the inherent truth and love of all beings and their yearning for truth, and a lot to do with the relationship between the truth, the word, the teachings, the flock, um, and that kind of relationship. Um, for example, if you read this parable and just consider, because I totally agree with Carmen's, interpretation. But another way to look at it would be if you read it and it starts with the good man. If you see the good man as the father, okay, just look at it that way. The good man, the father who rented out the vineyard, okay, the vineyard being the word, okay, or the teachings, um, and the tenant farmers being those authorized to teach, and the produce simply being the people receiving the word, the people that have a yearning for this truth and love. Um, and the servants that the Father sent, okay, to these people that were authorized to teach the word, were actually prophets. Uh, they were authentic, lovers of truth, but they didn't have that much authority. So they just beat them up and rejected them. And finally, the Father sent his son. Now, he did have authority, and that's the only one they killed. Why? Because they wanted to maintain their idea of truth. They wanted to hold on to power. They wanted to hold on to the control of the people, perhaps the wealth, the prestige, and so forth. So they killed him because they knew he was the heir, okay, and he had authority. Uh, the, Now that paints an entirely different picture, very much of the religion, perhaps, it's just another way contemplative. It makes sense to look at it that way. The good man, the father, the vineyard being the word, the teaching, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he let these tenant farmers rented it out to him who had the authority to teach. But then he sent the servants who had not much authority, but they knew the truth. They were authentic. Okay, the prophets. The servants were the prophets. Okay, and they beat them up. Okay, and finally he sent the son who had authority, and they killed him. And this is similar to a parable. I think it's in Matthew. It does the same thing, and that's the nature of these parables. I think it's a mistake to think we know for certain what any of them mean. Okay, let them, let them contemplate, because what I just described makes sense as well. Because why these parables? That's why he's using these parables, and these are the kind of words that people really understood back then. Okay, because that was their way of life and way of doing things. Um, so. Um, so it's kind of a warning about, in a sense, you could also say misguided teachings. I mean, non-duality today is flooded with teachers on the internet now compared to just a few years ago. Okay. Yeah. But not all of them are authentic. Okay. In our mind, a lot of them have more to do with self-help, perhaps. Okay. Because this is a hard pill to swallow, the truth initially. Okay. It's not about self-help. Will give you a better life, certainly will, but not the way you imagine. Okay. not the me. Uh, so in a sense, it points to that in a sense, you know, uh, just a way of looking at it, because there's certainly a lot of uh, the market's flooded right now with teachers, uh, and one needs to be cautious um, because there's much to be gained in teaching, prestige, uh, perhaps money or what have you. Uh, uh, so, but it's about the love for truth. It's not about believing anything. And that's what you're looking for in the teacher. Does he love the truth? Okay. Uh, does he not believe? Beliefs are easy. You can go to any church and start believing things.
Hmm.
But what's the heart? What's coming from the heart? And this parable, for some reason, takes me there. The
Hmm.
importance of that. What to look for in a teacher, because there's lots of teachers out there, and a lot of them appeal to the ego, because it's something you can sink your teeth in. A better me. Okay. Uh, in non-duality, life will be better, but it doesn't evolve around a me. It's a very hard thing to articulate, but you know exactly what I'm referring to.
Hmm.
Um, but that's what I wanted to. And just like Carmen said, yeah, it's like a house being built on sand.
Yeah.
Uh, it's
Why
not
don't you
going
read
anywhere.
his, why don't you read his interpretation?
Yeah, his interpretation, the truth, undermines our view of ourselves as independent and autonomous. Deep inside, we know this house to be built on sand, that the walls of our castle of identity have no foundation, but we don't want to hear it. We want this illusion to be maintained. When the mirror of truth is held up to us, we feel fear, and the fear turns to anger, wars result, and so forth. Because everyone deep down inside, if they're honest, are insecure. They know you're not the person you portray yourself to be. And you're not the person that others think you are. Everybody knows that deep down inside, but reject it. And that's exactly kind of like what he's saying. We there's no foundation. It's illusion, and we don't. They might have semi glimpses, but then they reject it. Okay, and go with concrete, objective, worldly, material things. Um,
Mm.
so the best one can hope for. And when we say teachers in this parable, I don't necessarily mean teachers that are you know teachers that have set signs and on the internet. Anybody can be a teacher. A good friend, but has a love for truth, is a teacher. If you're living the truth the best you can, you're a teacher, and you don't even know it.
That's
In
right.
my mind,
Hmm.
it's not about, because too many people check their own authority at the entrance of the temple, and whatever the teacher says is, and they don't put it to the test. They're sheep. Okay. Uh, One should not check their own common sense and authority, uh, putting things to the test and so forth. But
Yeah. And
lovely
also
parable.
the practice, the practice of uh, uh, a, a truth experience or a truth lover. The practice is contemplation and discernment in a quiet space, so that we're not tripped up by the mind that was conditioned and has all these other agendas, conditioned self experiences and memory and fear and all
Yeah.
those other things that go with it. That was a beautiful interpretation of the saying prior to reading Cameron's even. I really enjoyed your description of um, the way it was presented, and how, even the characters that you
Yeah.
you added that piece of it, sort of that, it's almost like listening to a commentary, a detail of some of the parables that are in the New
Yeah.
Testament, and actually beautiful, even before getting to Cameron, who, as we know, he loved the Jesus and the New Testament, and
Yeah.
he brings that flavor into many of these, understanding that just what you said, we can't know for sure
Right.
what
Right.
was said, because there are some difference. There are some different wordings.
Right.
This seems to be very close, and this one's the Gospel of Thomas is the one that's the most cryptic because it hasn't been
Yeah.
edited and added to.
Yes. And we don't want it to be very accurate and factual because that makes it something too easy to believe. Uh,
Yeah,
we want it to be more contemplative. You know,
yeah,
uh, some interpretations you read and you just know they're off because they're not non-duality based. But um, we have to be careful of what we believe,
mm,
and that has to be anchored in a yes and not knowing at the same time, so to speak.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah, and thank you for that, Rick. And all before I go to Tim's hand up, there's a chat that Kendall, I think it was Kendall that put in the chat. Uh, you could say the thread is running through our current political dramas. Yeah, the same thing. It's
yeah.
similar energies, and they have the energies that are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, these are all different levels of energies, and we're in
Yeah.
one in our political
Yeah.
system. It looks like around the world. We're not
Oh, yeah.
isolated here
Yeah.
in
And,
America.
and it's threaded in some of these parables. And if you're not anchored in, are you still going to have anxiety? Of course. Fears? Of course.
Yeah,
Conditions not going to go away, but you don't remain there. It's not who you are.
yeah.
You have a home. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you can, I mean, in my mind, it's interesting because I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita, and the Bhagavad Gita really points out that these situations that we are facing, the energies of our own samskaras and what do they call them? Gunas?
Gunas. Yeah. The
Yeah,
gunas. Yeah.
they are, this is offering an opportunity for us to look at those things from a place as the witness and touch it not. And it doesn't mean that we may not touch it, but just like a
Right.
match that burns twice, you learn to don't touch it, and you feel better. You find, and so
Yeah.
what is that
Yeah.
doing? That's giving us an understanding where we can
Yes.
abide in
Yes.
peace while the body mind is still uh,
Yes.
voting or
Right.
or doing something else
Right. Because no
otherwise.
matter what, thought is going to remain dualistic. It's the nature of thinking,
Yeah,
and there's the realm of opposites. Evil is what the Bible called evil is just ignorance. It's identifying with the mind. You could say evil is the mind in
yeah,
some respects.
yeah.
And
It's a
that's what
mind
we see.
separate. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, thank you, Rick and
Thanks.
Tim. I didn't forget about you. Please unmute your mic.
Uh,
There you go. Yeah, you
okay.
had it. You're
Yeah.
on.
A different question, really. I mean, in 8, we have this expression: "Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear." And
Yeah.
in 65, we have "Let him who has ears hear." Now, I'm wondering whether this is an invitation to decode what I've just said. Not me, but you'll have to. So does it mean you'll have to just think about what I've said, and if you do understand where I'm coming from, you will understand in the way that Rick has just done, for instance.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's accurate. If you're in a meeting, if you've watched any of the old Papaji satsangs, or if you've been to a Muji meeting, he would, and I don't know that I've seen Francis say this. I don't, I have not seen Rupert say this, but um, I've heard Muji, I've seen Muji say, who sees this? Who can see
Right.
this? And so he'll say something that's profound and a deeper understanding, and just look out and say, who can see this? And just acknowledge that it's landing, not for everyone, but
Mm,
for those that have ears
yeah.
to hear.
So it's open to interpretation by everybody, but the true interpretation is for people who understand what he's talking about.
Yeah, and it may not be, it could be 15 minutes later, you hear something that does open you up,
Yeah,
and you go back and you go, oh, I get it.
that's
Or
it. Yeah.
it doesn't mean you're dumb, and
No.
doesn't mean that you can't get it or you can't be open. It just means that in that moment it's not landing. Maybe you're more of a different kind of visual listener, or a kinesthetic listener. Maybe it wasn't described, so it comes in to your
Mm.
to your way of listening.
It's
So
almost it's almost like uh, in modern language we would say, "Do you get where I'm coming from?"
exactly. And that affirmation, it could be that they don't get it at all, but they think they do.
But it opens up the question. It says it asks them to just review it a little bit instead of
Yes.
just taking it on face value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
a good a psychologist, a guy that's a hypnotist or a little bit of a psychologist that teaches and presents with that understanding, will often add to the end of their statement, yes, and looking for you to acknowledge yes. So your buy-in is affirmed. You'll see a lot of teachers present like that.
Yeah.
And it's a psychological buy-in that you're actually agreeing to, right?
Psychological feedback too. Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you,
Thank
Tim.
you. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Hi, Sandra. Come on down.
Hello, it's
Hey,
nice to see you.
thank you. Same here.
Just this little brief conversation with Tim reminded me that years ago when I first studied the Bible, I had this woman teacher who was amazing. And she said, you're not to read any commentaries, you're not to listen to any commentaries, but let the word speak to your heart, not your head. And there is something in that when you listen to a commentary, it takes you in a direction and then your mind starts grappling with it. So when I read this, at first I was like, what? But then as I just sat with it, I recognized this. I recognized this story in my everyday life with little children who don't want to share. They want to hold on to what they have, in the dualistic world. And so with that in mind, what this said to me is that when I'm invited to this path, to this work, there is an exchange. There's something I need to give up. And each of these tenants didn't want to give up anything. They didn't want to give the produce. They didn't want to, and that just hasn't been touched on. And to me, I mean, even Jesus, when he's, come follow me, leave everything else behind, or, give up your riches. So I think this parable speaks to that. speaks that there is an kind of exchange that takes place. And it's very difficult to give up the egoic persona that really is necessary on this path.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's what came to me without reading the commentary first. Yeah.
I love that. And I love the way Rick first brought that in. And I didn't start out there. I started out doing reading the saying and then reading the commentary. And then I went after maybe 10 or 15 sayings, I started just reading the saying and writing in before ever reading the commentary.
Yeah.
And I saw and I felt the added value of that. Sometimes I didn't get it at all. I needed the commentary to go, what is this saying? And then other times I was real happy. It was sort of like what we just experienced with Rick and you in the just going a little deeper. And sometimes other people come on and say, I saw this when I read that, and none of us had seen it yet. And someone else will come on and say, I see this, and it's a whole nother way of seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who would like to read 66? We'll move on to 66. It's a very short saying, but a long commentary. Who would like to read that? Rick, go ahead.
Sure, got no takers. I'll do it. 66. Jesus said, "Show me the stone which the builders have rejected. That one is the cornerstone." Boy, that is a very short one, ain't it?
Yeah.
Show me the stone which the builders have rejected. That one is the cornerstone. Well, I would just like to say, in biblical times, the cornerstone was you couldn't build a house without a cornerstone. It was the main foundation which everything rested upon. It's like the center of gravity of the structure, normally on a corner. So a cornerstone was that's why Christ was considered the cornerstone of faith or something like that in the Bible. It's the center of gravity. It's that which everything gets its strength from. And it was critical for a building. And he's saying, show me the stone which the builders have rejected. In other words, non-duality, for example, that isn't mainstream cocktail party discussion, right? It's not mainstream. It's rejected by the masses pretty much. And he's saying that's the cornerstone. Okay, you are the cornerstone. Everyone here pretty much is the your cornerstone. And the rest is that don't see it are the spiritually blind or dead. Okay, Jesus would say, except for the cornerstones. And there's other similar. It's like a ship being without an anchor. It's lost. A cornerstone is the rock. It's the anchor. It's not on sand. It's built upon rock. That's kind of like what it means to me. Mm-hmm. But the only issue I have, again, there's just words. And Cameron's discussion, second paragraph, those who do not subscribe to these beliefs represent a threat to the mainstream. Certainly true. I just wouldn't use the word beliefs because that can be problematic. Love for truth is more important than beliefs. Okay, beliefs are okay if they're anchored in that love. Okay, that experiential love. But beliefs can be purely mine, me. It loves to hide in the word, in me. I'm just not crazy about the yearning, the desire for love and truth. Uh, to know that's, but that's not a belief. Um, and it's always going to go against the mainstream. I mean, look at Jesus. It was definitely a threat to the existing authority, and it got him crucified. You know, not so much in India. Buddha was fine. It was a different culture. He was able to teach
No,
for 40 years.
they wanted to kill him there too. They
Well,
were
did they?
after, he
Well,
got
yeah, he
run
got
out of
poisoned in the end, right? Yeah.
well, he got run out of 3 villages before he went as far. I mean, I don't know. That's what I read, and that's documentaries I watched, and it's what I learned when I went to Rishikesh, because those
Uh,
ashrams were in the area where he spent time in those
right.
lost years. Yeah.
But that which is rejected, uh, it's rejected because people would prefer worldly, material things. Uh, so that's what I get out of it. Uh, Jesus, show me the one that's rejected. That's the one I want. Okay, that's what's real. Okay, the
Yeah.
one that's rejected.
Well, it's not it's not the system, the perfect system like the cornerstone. It's as a builder term, you set the 2 corners, and then you run
Yeah,
a string and you set the wall.
right,
If you're laying block, you set the wall to make it straight, and everything sort of follows
right.
that order. And so it's an order, it's a structured
Yeah,
order of a system. It becomes the anchor, and it becomes the defining perimeter.
the anchor. I like that. The anchor. And there's a similar parable, I think, coming down the road. It says willingness to be alone. Same sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
To be rejected, not lonely, but
To
alone.
be an oddball, to be,
Right.
a
Because
little bit
ultimately we
weird.
are alone. There are no others. Ultimately, okay, we're one. That's the aloneness. Lonely is of the mind. Okay, but alone, that's reality. But anyways, that's
I'm going to
okay.
read what Cameron said.
Right.
He said, "Man is the builder," and Mel, I'll get your hand in just a minute. Man is the builder with the evolution of the opposing thumb. Let me get I need the glasses for the
Okay.
italicized. Man is the builder with the evolution of the opposing thumb, and his ability to conceive of that which does not yet exist. He became a tool maker par excellence. The more all-encompassing his created environment, the more believable the story. I did this. This belief, in turn, has given rise to the concept of progress and a better future, happiness postponed. Those who do not subscribe to these beliefs represent a threat to the mainstream because they have the ability to undermine this world view. Knowing deep down the shallow basis for these concepts, this in turn gives rise to fear and then anger among the mainstream. Therefore, they are rejected. Jesus says these ones are the cornerstone because they will form the vanguard of his movement for change.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Pe-
Yeah, and
People
I
that,
agree that
yeah,
take the word belief out and uh put no or lovers of truth, or
yeah.
but that takes time. It took me
Oh yeah,
time
yeah. Their words. Yeah, yeah.
before I recognized in my own experience that belief was still a conditioned mindset that was learning to
Right, right.
distinguish and understand.
Yeah, I think beliefs are fine if they're anchored in experiential, love for truth. They
Yeah.
just shouldn't be, you know. He's talking about people that have fallen in love with the I thought, and did all this.
Yep.
Vice the real I,
Yeah.
so to speak. Beautiful.
Exactly. Thank you. All right, Mel, the mic is all yours.
Thanks. Hi.
Hi.
When I read that, I kind of, without reading the commentary, kind of like what Sandy had suggested trying. When I read that without it, what came to me was that Jesus really worked with he saw the possibility in people that they didn't see in themselves. And he also worked with the poorest, the rejected of society. And it was them that he built his, he turned, Peter, you are the rock of my church. He saw their possibility and brought out the best in them in that way, and they lived up to his understanding of them. So in that way, they became, became inspired from that. And so he really lifted up from the unacceptable, those people he worked with. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how.
Yeah. He had an eye for, he saw with intuitive clarity.
Yeah. Even though, the society might have rejected them, yet he could see their potential and
Yeah.
that out in them. So
Yeah. Thank you, Mel. That was good. That was good input. Appreciate that. And Carla, hi. Welcome. Not yet. Unmute. Can you unmute, please?
Yeah, sorry.
That's it.
Just a question. I haven't been here often, just 2 times before, I think. But I read the book of, and maybe you already discussed this, but I was curious. Gary Renard has written this book, The Disappearance of the Universe. There he gets visited by Persa and the other angel-like
Arden.
person. And they have later given him the Thomas Gospel anew with a lot of these logions missing.
The
So I
sayings
was
are missing.
wondering,
The
like for instance, the
number,
one you just had, 65.
it's missing from his.
Yeah, it's not according to his book, at least. It's not coming from the original Thomas version. But yeah, I
Okay.
am studying Nahamadi scriptures too, and
Yeah.
there are many more Thomas versions or Thomas scriptures, Thomas manuscripts were circulating already before 1945.
So the authenticity of this one is, I think this is the most untouched version, and it's supposed to, the number I get is that there were 114. And I don't remember. I read The Disappearance of the Universe many years ago, and I didn't compare his. I would say this would be more accurate than that. Just my guess.
Yeah, I was also wondering because there are a few very beautiful verses that were emitted. But that's according to my opinion, that I think,
That
well,
were
why would
omitted
he have
from.
emitted that?
Well, they were omitted from the Disappearance of the Universe version that was said to. Okay.
Yeah,
So, Cameron, he's a pretty smart guy, and yeah, he's going to be looking for, before he goes and does this,
yeah,
he's going to be doing some, I feel he's going to be researching what's the most authentic document out there. He's going to comment on that one. It's just my guess. We met him here, and he's amazing. And I trust his discernment in which one he would put a commentary on. as
Mm.
being the most, and I'm going to actually, now that you've said this, Carla, I have the Nag Hammadi. I'm going to go back and look at the Nag Hammadi and see what, if there's a difference between this one and that one. Because the
No,
Nag
not
Hammadi is
between
also the most
the
authentic.
Nahamadi is equal to the one here.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
would trust that because I
No, the
have the Nag
Nahamadi
Hammadi.
only says that there are many, before even the Thomas Gospel was found in Nahamadi,
Yeah.
there were many versions of it because already it was forbidden and considered heretic
Yep.
by Origenus or one of these guys from the time back then.
Yeah.
Well, it
Yeah.
doesn't make so many, it's not too important for me, but I was just wondering.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
there was also the Dead Sea Scrolls because
yeah.
the Gospel of Thomas came out of the Nag Hammadi in Egypt, and it also came out of the Dead Sea Scrolls
Oh, yeah?
that were found in Qumran. So there are two places that they came from within that 2 or 3 year period. The first
Oh,
one, the Nag Hammadi, I think was 1949 or
45.
45.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, just after World War II. And I think the Dead Sea Scrolls about the same time or two
Yeah.
years later or so. I
Yeah.
was wondering about that too, the
Yeah.
coincidence of of the time when the world almost disappeared.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, just something to give the mind something to chew on.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It's all mind stuff, I
food for
know.
thought.
I
Yeah.
was just wondering. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you. And let's see, Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Can't hear you yet. It went on and off.
There we go. Yeah, I
That's
know.
it.
There we go.
Okay.
Hello, Billy boy.
How
How
are
you
you?
doing?
I'm awesome.
Doing good. On a non-duality side, I think you made a really good point there about this, that, you put the two cornerstones and you run the wall straight. What he's saying is, and that would be what? Conditioning. That is what we are conditioned to do,
There it is. Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah, and
So,
and logic and makes perfect sense and it's perfect and you
yeah.
got to follow this line. Yeah.
And so, as Jesus once said, the Jesuits or whatever they were, they washed their up to their elbows with tradition, conditioning.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And there's a couple of things here. One I disagree with, and the rest, though, is really it's just that when truth is spoken, it's not in a straight line. It just isn't.
That's so true.
So I don't know. So, and then when I get to the end where it says these ones are the cornerstone, so it just means they're the hearers. That's all. It doesn't mean anything. Because the way this is written, even with Cameron, is very dualistic.
It is.
Even
Yeah.
the interpretation is extremely dualistic in separation. And it's not like one person is this or one person is that, and one person doesn't hear, and you have ears to hear and all that. And there is no me. So then who is listening? Well, it's only consciousness. Because, right? But that's the trick, right? That's the hide and seek game that we play and the universe plays. And then here it says, because they will form the vanguard of this movement for change. There is no change in consciousness.
Right. Yeah.
Life comes and goes. It's changing all the time. Everything's going, but everything is because you are not Bill, you are not Barb, you are not. I know that's a very hard thing to get to, but it's just relaxing in that and realizing it's life movement. And so, yeah, I just think it's just take all the structure and conditioning out of this interpretation.
Yeah.
And just face it with there's no groups. There's no Hindu, there's no Muslim, there's no nothing. But I was going to comment on your political thing, because I've been doing this over the last little while, is researching backwards to every 100 years and see, and then within that break it down to 50. Now, Krishnamurti said in 1970, when he wrote his observation paper, he was saying the world was in chaos. There was the politicians were, the whole thing was going on. To me, it's if stopping and observing and just trying to get a wider global understanding. This is like the human mind body is just like a hamster on a wheel. Seriously, it's the same war, just different faces. The faces change. The politics are the same, just the faces change. We're not of the world. The world is in us. We're not in the world. So it's okay. Everything's fine. All is well.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is a checkpoint for one to recognize the emotional logging in. It's a really good checkpoint for one to step back and in this understanding, abide in presence, in the thing that never changes and is always you.
Yes. And the politicians are just a reflection of life, of what's going on globally. It's the people. And but they're in the world. And that's okay. I'm in the world with them, but I'm not of it.
Yeah.
I don't need to be of it.
It takes it takes a real deep experience of understanding to come to that place of peace.
Well, and that's why I say what I say in non-duality, because I did the Christian whole thing, everything, which brought me to the non-duality. And I agree. Like, I had no church. I had no conditioning. So when this came and opened, it just opened. There was nothing to drop. I don't think people have to drop anything, because consciousness to me has nothing to be added. You can't add to it and you can't subtract from it, because it's totality and wholeness and complete. And so it's our minds that believe this addition and subtraction, that we have to give something up. Who gives it up is my question.
Well, there's a play in the sandbox of believing that we're this and a separate self, and that that takes that seems to take time to release itself from what it never was. That's the play in the sandbox of
right.
of consciousness
The game
in
of hide and
bodysuit.
seek. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I understand everybody. It's not everybody's at their own level. Everybody's in it. It's just about, like you said, the view, because none of this is talking to us. This is shooting way over us into, knowing itself.
Yeah.
So and it's not that it's just that I am in a I don't know. It just is just existence.
Yeah.
There is no
I always try to tell people that, because understanding comes at different levels. That's the way it looks like. And my suggestion for most people that are they haven't reached that clear understanding yet is be gentle on yourself.
Yes.
And stay open. That's a really helpful place to be gentle on you, stay open, and consciousness will reveal itself to itself as itself for you.
Yes, because I just read a thing. I used to have a spiritual teacher in 2003. Kind of played with that for a while after my son died. And I have to laugh, because I went back and I went to my binder to reread. And oh my gosh, this is all there, but it wasn't time for me.
Right. Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
And that's what we were saying a few minutes ago. You might read something and not get it, not drop in, and 15 minutes later, oh, I got it. Yeah, it comes in a different.
Mine was 20 years.
That way where you're available, right?
Yeah, time is of no factor in this.
Yes, Barbara, you're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, Carol. Barbara is awesome. She's loves Carol said she loves hearing you speak. Yeah, you do come from a very clear place. It's very, very so. Thank you, Rick. Come on down.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate on Barbara's comments, which she's 100% right. That's why Ramana said the most effective teaching is silence. No concepts at all. But how many are at that stage? We can't start there. Ultimately, the best teaching is nothing, saying nothing, complete silence. Because there's no division. Our tools are dualistic. Okay. But even in non-dual circles, there can still be a lot of fundamentalism. We start believing, oh, there's no time, no otherness, and that comes on as a belief, vice experiential. Conditioning is not. Conditioning gets a bad rap. Conditioning is good. We wouldn't be here without conditioning. Your heart wouldn't beat without
We
conditioning.
wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't
Right.
be. Yeah.
Conditioning is a very good thing. It gets a bad rap, so we got to be careful what we think we know. But she's right.
Yeah.
Chaos is normal. It's anything that is consciousness. It's sort of a choice of consciousness, even though there's no chooser. Okay, is a way of looking at it.
Yeah.
If it exists,
Consciousness would be the
it's already
chooser.
happened. You can say it's wrong or right or whatever,
Yeah.
but dualism is okay. They're pointers. Just don't fall in love with the pointers. But those are all tools are dualistic.
Yeah. Well,
until
duality
we
is
have
also consciousness.
until there's understanding. Understanding transcends duality. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Rick. And just to follow up on Kim, I was going to bring Cameron will come back. I've been in communication with him. Love to have him come back. I'd like it if we, if we can have some questions just think about this. If you have any thoughts on what we would say to Cameron, I'm happy to bring him back. And he said he would come back. So yes, we will bring him back before we're finished with his book, and we can all say thank you or bless you or whatever you want to say to him. We want to be nice, even if we don't. He did a really nice job on these translations, most of them, and we don't have to agree with all of them or anyone here. Really, it's everyone has their own understanding. What your takeaway is up to you. And let's see. Ursula said, "Is the cornerstone consciousness?" Well, the cornerstone, yes, and it's being represented here as like the anchor, the first, the clarity that drops in where one knows the self. That would be the cornerstone of your understanding, I think. And that's what that's sort of it's given as a symbol for the anchor to our understanding as we begin to recognize that we are what God is, or we are consciousness itself. And there's no we, and actually there's not even an I. There's just as Rick said, there's just silence. That's the deepest cornerstone. And then someone else said, truth revealing itself. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I like that, Rick. Appreciate that. Okay, let's move on. Let's see. We have about 6 minutes left. We can move to 67. Someone wants to read that. We'll end with that one. Who would like to read 67? Carla. Hi, Carla.
Hi. I haven't got the explanation from Cameron because I've got a I didn't buy the book because I've already three different versions from the Thomas Gospel. But
Okay.
I love this one because my website, I put it on top of my own website, and it says, okay, I will look at the, it says, Jesus said, those who know all but are lacking in themselves are completely lacking. I don't know if you have the word
That's
lacking.
close. That's pretty close to what is said in the
Yeah.
book. Hmm. It fits. And do you have the commentary? You want to read that?
No, I haven't got it because I haven't bought the
Okay.
book.
Well, I'll read the commentary then, if that's okay.
Yeah.
He says in the commentary, and here's what the book says. Jesus said, if one who knows the all still feels a personal deficiency, he is completely deficient. So he left out the word a, I think, but it says sense of lack is one of the hallmarks of ego, the belief in a personal consciousness. We can have a deep intellectual understanding of truth, but if we still feel separate, we have achieved nothing. For at the feeling level, we still believe ourselves to be alone, at risk, and at the mercy of our fears and desires. Only when the investigation is complete at all levels, thought, feeling, and sense perception, are we free.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, so you could expand on that. You could say more, and I'm open to listening to hear if you have something to add, Carla.
No, I've got nothing to add. Just it's funny how the first time I read it, I thought it was all about changing my personality. That's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It took
Many of us.
some years to understand the real meaning. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's all I have to say.
Well,
Thank you.
I think the saying, as it's written, if one who knows the all still feels a personal deficiency, he is completely deficient. It's a sense of a feeling that there's something missing. And uh, if you're if you're investigating truth and you're living on concepts, on what you've read, and it's a belief instead of a understanding and a deep experiential knowing, I would say you fit the description in that saying. And how do you feel? Noticing with unattached awareness, unattached uh, uh, witness. That is the key to coming to allowing consciousness to reveal itself. That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that too. It's
Yeah.
not always so easy for me, at least, to listen inside. I'm still very often I'm taken over by the person. But well, I know where to be happy, and that's the main point in life, isn't it? To be happy. I know where I have to go. So, and that's yeah, just
Yeah.
like what it says here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Carla. Appreciate that
Hey.
comment. And Rick, we'll wrap it up with your what you have to say.
Yeah, real quick, Bill. I find this one a little bit problematic for myself. You know, Jesus said somewhere a person can know everything, but if he doesn't know himself, he knows nothing. Pretty much like you, and that pretty much explains today. We think we know a lot, okay, conceptually and so forth. And like you said, you can know it all, but if it's conceptually based, by experientially, it's not the same. But it's kind of depressing. He says one can if it's not conceptual, because it doesn't clarify, you can still feel a personal deficiency. He's still completely deficient. Well, we all have like roles we play in life, male, female, husband, occupation, what have you. And they all have expectations and a history and require some effort, right? But who we are, we're like actors. But who we really are, there's no lines to study. It can't be screwed up. Requires no effort. Okay, it transcends all roles. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's less about deficiency and what you identify with, because the best teachers, they have bad days and they can display ignorance, but they see it. They don't remain there. They're not attached to it. Okay, this is you're still going to be this, because this can seem very depressing. Like, oh, I'm still having deficiencies. That's normal. Okay, but it's not who you are. It's a role, or you can catch yourself. It's not what you're identifying with. Having deficiencies, noticing it, the second you notice it, you're no longer in it. Okay.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
because that can be interpreted as very depressing, because I'm always getting upset or whatever the case may be. So this is kind of a tricky one, in my mind. And as far as the knowing, we're talking about noumenal knowing, which is embedded in not knowing, not a phenomenal knowing of all the facts stated in this book. But it's a tricky one, because you're still going to have, you're not going to be perfect. You're a human being. Conditioning's not going to go away. And to have that centered as an expectation, well, that's a problem.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah.
So.
Well, this has been a good, I like what we looked at today, everyone. Thank you for your participation. And I'll see you next week if you're here, and I'll see you later if you come to the Practicing Presence at 3:00. I'll see you then. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Bhagavad Gita at the 3:00 Practicing Presence. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.